Hello and welcome to our series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today has been described as one of India's great classical dancers, bred in the purest of traditions but steeped equally in the contemporary and the radical. She's won more awards and been applauded at stages in India and around the world than the duration of this program would allow me to list. Most recently, she was awarded the Padma Vibhushan and has been appointed chairperson of the Sangeet Natak Academy. I'm delighted to welcome Sonal Mansingh.
Thank you, Rajiv.
I was watching you as we were counting down to this interview, and you folded your hands and looked up to the heavens. How do you prepare for a performance? What happens in the 30 minutes before a performance starts?
30 minutes is a bit long, but from the time that I leave for the theatre or the venue, I prefer to be silent. That has been so even when I was young, and I can't give a reason for that. Then the time makeup and hair and other things are going on, it's a constant hum of dance and music and quietude. A few minutes before the performance, when I tie my ankle bells, ghungroos, after dedicating them to the goddess, the great goddess, and my gurus, then it's total until I jump on the stage, and then I'm the queen.
So when does the process of surrender really start? Surrender to the process of dance. When does that start? Just before you go in, from that first leap onto the stage? It's not always a leap, but...
as I said, from the time I leave home, and I'm constantly saying to myself, and I'm now revealing to you what I've revealed not to anyone so far.
Be careful, there are a few
Not
million
reveal
people
too much.
hopefully watching.
Because I suppose everybody has their own way of getting into the mystique and mystery of the creative process that is dance. And it really becomes a leap into the unknown virtually, because you don't know. You might have prepared so well for 6 months, but that first step on the stage and subsequent things, what's going to happen? Whether it's all going to come out like floodgates are opened, or whether you are going to be tight-knotted, whether there is going to be grace, whether the audience is going to experience that rasa, that ultimate experience of delight. You don't know. So in my case, I think the surrender begins quite early. And as I've grown older, I've realized that all that fumpa, when one is young, it just vanishes, and you realize you are like an empty pot, allowing the grace to descend and fill you and overflow. You are like an instrument. Let the divine play on you, and it's so beautiful.
I doubt that if it's really ever happened to you, but what happens if the performance isn't working and it's not getting through to the audience? Has that ever happened?
Oh yes, it's happened, not too often, I must say. It has happened very few times. But then, you sense it and you alter the energy.
So in a sense, consciousness intrudes on the process of surrender.
No, but it's a it's you are walking on the edge of the thing, no? Yeah, you are not totally lost. It's a very subjective and objective process together, and therefore that wonderful rekha, that line, and it's like a line on water or a line on the rock, and so you surrender, but unless you are conscious, you are a vegetable. So kshurasya dhara nishita duratyaya, as the Upanishad says, that is like walking on the sword, edge of the sword, and what a delightful sword.
Is there what is the difference between, you've used the word divine and grace several times. In what ways is it different when you're doing your contemporary work? When you're obviously doing a piece or performing something that derives and gets its inspiration and its narrative in a sense from the divine, it's much easier, the analogy holds. But what when it's a contemporary situation?
But and the contemporary situation is also informed by divinity, in the sense that I don't see any battle between the two. To me, it is all pervasive at all times, whether we live today or yesterday or tomorrow. It is, I think, a difference in our own perception. So contemporary issues are the same to me, only the metaphors have changed. And I'll give you my favorite example of the river Yamuna, the pollution. And I was going to Patpadganj across Yamuna to be the chief guest at some function. That was about 6 years ago. And the bridge was closed. I think it was being built, or when was that? And we had to go on the pontoon.
That's right.
Bridge. And that stinking, foaming, bilious, yellow-green Yamuna. I looked at it and I said, my God, is this the Yamuna of Krishna? And then the verses came back to me from Srimad Bhagavad, which described in exactly the same way the Yamuna when poisonous snake Kaliya had taken up his abode there, and the famous legend of Krishna vanquishing the Kaliya, dancing on the hood, ordering it to go away to the ocean, far away from habitation. It's the same Yamuna. Where is the Krishna? And then when Supreme Court ordered the, those...
cleaning of the...
Yes. Then maybe Supreme Court is Krishna. Maybe if you do a PIL, you are the Krishna. So the metaphors are alive. The divinity is all pervasive at all times. It depends on each one, how you perceive it, how you experience it.
With divinity and grace have come up several times in the conversation. In what ways do you see yourself as a religious person or a spiritual person beyond the context of performance, which is obviously a process of flow and surrender to something larger than yourself?
Earlier I used to speak very freely, and even now I do, but I'm a little wary and these oft abused terms. Because the minute we say somebody is spiritual, they say, aha, don't we know? There must be some charge sheets.
Do you have a sense of a God or a presence that...
I think I'm deeply religious, in the sense that at all times I'm aware that I'm one in the chain of so many, that this little earth of ours is part of a solar system, and there are many such solar systems, and there are many such Brahmanda, many such universes, what the scientists and astrophysicists are now talking about. We see it all in Krishna's little mouth when he opens it to show that he's not eaten butter. So I think I live all these things within me all the time.
In what ways does it impact you? Is it sort of a humbling experience? Is it a reassuring presence?
Both. Both. You're right, it's both, and very enriching, very reassuring, very warm. And Rajiv, especially because I have lived so many years on my own since I was very young. I've gone through the ups and downs of life. Something of this nature I think has sustained me, something very deep down, which is like a rock, it holds me together. And it's very sweet, it's very warm, it's wonderful.
Well, we'll take a brief commercial break and return to talking to Sonal Mansingh about the ups and downs of life. Welcome back. You spoke about the ups and downs of life. Before we come to the downs, which is sort of in some ways, I guess, easier to talk about and more tempting, but what have been the ups? What have been the sort of most gratifying, satisfying moments in your life? The Padma Vibhushan?
Yes, one of those. But I think certainly the moments when I started dancing, started to learn, certainly when His Holiness the Dalai Lama invited me to Dharamsala to dance for him. Certainly when my guru patted on my back and with tears in his eyes he said, yes, now you are dancing. It was the same guru who had shown me a monkey dancing when I was 16 and said, what's the difference between you and the monkey? Show me. So when people, I'll tell you this, Argentina in Buenos Aires, Catholic high priest was waiting for me in the green room, and he fell on his knees and kissed my costume. I was quite taken aback and sort of tried to lift him, and he wouldn't. And with tearful eyes, he said in Spanish, which was I could understand, and I saw Christ. And I'd done my Mary Magdalene piece. Things like that, strange places, strange things.
So how dependent is that feeling of up on the appreciation of other people, and how does that balance with your own inner sense of fulfillment? I've done a great job, it doesn't matter if it hasn't got through.
Times, there were different times in my life when criticism, bad reviews, gossips, rumors, they all hurt. I think one has crossed a big threshold, slowly, gradually. I won't say it was a leap. It's taken some work. And now it's a very easy flow inside. The rapids have been negotiated. And one would say the world is as it is. People would be like that. There are good ones. There are those who don't like you, so be it.
Well, you've already sort of pointed to the downs, and in terms of how gossip and rumor might have affected you. Well, let's look at the accident that happened to you briefly. It was a very serious accident. Few people expected you to be back dancing again. If you're not tired of repeating it, what happened?
I'm never tired of repeating it, Rajiv. I'll tell you why. Because at a recent performance in Montreal, where I was treated, I invited my chiropractor, who was my angel, on the stage, and gave him flowers and talked about him. My entire troupe touched his feet, and the audience queued up to touch his feet, saying, thank you so much for doing this for us. And it was mixed audience of Canadians and Indians and all. So in 1974, I was in Bayreuth in South Germany. At that time, East and West Germany were separate. And Bayreuth, the what you call the Autobahn, led into Czechoslovakia. And East Germany and Czechoslovakia. So it was a very wooded area. We had gone to Nuremberg for Sunday, spent a nice evening drinking wine with friends. And I and my German fiancé at that time, Dr. Lechner, we drove back late in the night because from Monday morning I was to teach a workshop, continue with my 3 weeks workshop there. And I remember that it was drizzling, the Autobahn was slippery, we had rented a small Volkswagen, the Beetle.
Right.
And in those days there were no safety belts. And when you go for a short trip, neither is there any baggage bags. And if you remember, the dicky is in front and the engine is at the back.
Right.
So a deer suddenly crossed, and I remember that deer's head startled look in our headlights. The next thing I came to, when they sprinkled water, I was lying on the road, and I was told that the slamming brakes is taboo, but we all do that. So he had slammed the brakes, and the Volkswagen had turtled 3 times, and I had been thrown out, and I fell about 12-15 feet away on the Macadam Road, and I'd broken my spine. Next thing I knew, I was being turned around gently because they had to X-ray the entire thing. And I said, it's paining. And the next thing I knew was I was in the clinic at Erlangen, which is the headquarters of Siemens and many other such corporates. And they have very specialized clinics there. And I came to in the corridors while waiting my turn to be examined. And they put me on foam rubber for 2 or 3 days before.
What was your worst fear? I'll never dance again, I won't live.
I was told then, after they examined me, that my 12th vertebra had broken into 2 parts, and my extensive damage to my nerves, and my 4 ribs had broken and my collarbone had broken. But the main worry was that. So after 3 days, they gave me, they asked me if they would operate on me and give me a steel rod, or give me a cast, plaster cast. And although I couldn't speak, I believe I said no like that to the steel rod. So they hung me between 2 tables and gave me the plaster cast. And in those days it was like Roman torture. And then the surgeon, the main chief doctor, Folma, he said to my fiancée, she won't be able to dance ever again. I'm sorry, I have to tell you that. Don't tell her. But maybe she'll walk normally after 2 years, but I'll tell you what all to do.
But what was your fear?
At that point, I had I just didn't know. When I was told, that was 15 days later, when I was being carried to Montreal via Frankfurt and, airlifted. And after we were ensconced in Georg's apartment, then he told me, because I asked him then. I regained my voice a little bit and I said, what did the doctor say? I said, darling, you'll be all right. I said, no, please tell me. He said, you'll never be able to dance again, but you'll walk normally maybe in 2 years. Never mind, we'll do something. And I started howling. And from that day, I believe I lost the will to live, and I became white as sheet. That's when Dr. Pierre Gravel stepped in.
Chiropractor came in. We'll be right back after a brief commercial break. Welcome back. You were going to say, when I interrupted you for the commercial break, that it all goes like a film. What do you see in that film?
In that film, I see a lot of humane sentiments, a lot of warmth, a lot of concern, a lot of unknown people writing telegrams, messages. I see the wonderful Buddha eyes of Dr. Pierre Gravel, who stood at the foot of my bed. And after having made x-rays and talked to them, and he says, I'm afraid, Sonal. And I started howling, and he said, I'm afraid, Sonal, you will be able to dance again. And he wanted to give a kickstart to my metabolism and fill me with that will to live. So his humanity, Rajiv, for the entire treatment lasting about a year, he didn't take $1. And he'd only seen me dance once and known through friends who I was when he heard he came running. So it taught me a lot of things, I think, over the years. Immediately I knew all that I was at the top of my profession. I was beautiful, young, talented, and even the German.
You're still beautiful, young, and talented.
Thank you. German newspapers had flashed, the Indian dance star wounded in accident, and the first telegram in my hospital in Erlangen was from Mrs. Gandhi, who was Prime Minister, saying chin up, and best wishes for a speedy recovery and all that.
But you were to later on have difficulties with the Congress and and feel somewhat denied, cheated. What happened?
Well, during emergency, I suppose it's predictable. Coming from a family that do, my grandfather, a Gandhian, friend of Sardar Patel. My first visit to New Delhi was in 1948 when he came for Governor's Conference, and we all stayed with Sardar Patel, 1 Aurangzeb Road. And that kind of, my mother also was with Kasturba Gandhi in jail, Gandhian, but very, very enlightened background, modern in the treatment of children and education and whatnot. So when I refused to dance for the emergency and for the 20-point program of Sanjay Gandhi, this, that and other, well, that was it. Schluss, the doors were closed on me.
You've spoken about how many of your colleagues, got government houses and were taken care of, but you still don't have a government house, do you? You've been looking after yourself.
Yeah, I live in a rented flat ever since, and I'm quite happy there. In fact, it used to bother me. Doesn't bother me anymore. I think it's a blessing in disguise. I realized that one really doesn't carry anything up there, does one? So all that property business and this and that, and what I have is enough. It's lovely, it's marvelous, it's small, it's very warm, it's me.
What is the relationship that you have with your students? Because you take a very small number of students, 10, 15, 12, something like that. And what role do they play?
The first one, she literally gave a dharna outside my house. I mean, she and her mother. And I said, I'm not teaching. I don't teach. They said, no, she only will learn from you. I said, I don't teach. And I took to going from the back door, because at any time they would be there. Once I started teaching, I think it cleared my mind, because what you learn and when you teach, there is a synchronization, there is a clarification, there's a harmony between the give and take.
Well, just a quick final question, really. You are now chairperson of the Sangeet Natak Academy. You, moved, well, I can't say moved away from, but have donned another hat, that of an administrator. Do you feel burdened by that?
No, why?
Liberated?
I've founded and I've run my NGO, Center for Indian Classical Dances, now for 30 years, since 1977. And it's very much in line in of what I'm doing. I think it's an extension.
So for someone who has been so applauded and won so many awards, how gratifying is an award for you?
It is gratifying, Rajiv. I wouldn't say that it doesn't matter at all. It matters a lot, because we all exist at different levels, don't we? And it does matter when you live in a society that people respect you, they like you, they regard well what you have been doing, and that it's not gone waste or it's not just been for nothing. So it's very gratifying.
And thank you, Sonalji. May you win sort of lots of awards and lots more applause. Thank you very much.
Also.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's what will get you the awards.